Hello, it's Nick. What the hell? You're probably wondering what is going on here, given the fact that Joe is not here. I also cannot explain why those balloons just happened. Nevertheless, the reason it's just me tonight is because we originally recorded Wednesday, as we usually do, and our expert tech guy that gets paid loads of cash to do his job, Joe, who's definitely not an amateur one bit. He went to upload last night and realized that for whatever reason my audio didn't record. So you just see me at the camera moving my mouth, and you have Joe talking essentially to himself. Now, clearly nobody wants that. Of course, you got to hear my takes and what I got to say because it's valuable information if you like college football. It's I'm never wrong about anything, and if I am, we can just cut it out. But nevertheless, he couldn't record tonight, so I figured I would just do something myself. Now, given the fact that this is being released on a Friday night or Friday day, whatever Joe, the expert, decides to do, I figured I didn't want to go into any recap. I mean, the week's over. We do want to try to shoot for recording a Sunday reaction and then a Thursday or a Wednesday preview and release on Thursday. Um, we're still trying to figure this out. We don't know what the hell we're doing, but we're having fun with it. So that's really all that matters here. If you listen, awesome. If not, whatever. All right, so that being said, I typically go into some news, current events with the college football world when on any normal week. I had a couple that I wanted to bring up that I thought was interesting for discussing. Now, granted, it's a lot easier when I'm not talking to myself. As I record this, I'm literally looking at myself. Um, but nevertheless, first point, the Tennessee Volunteers have are now going to be charging a 10% athletic fee on top of their tickets that they're already selling to all of their games. Now, this isn't like 10% allocated from what they already charge. This is going to be a fee stacked on top to go to their, I guess, their NIL collective to try to raise some funds for their team. I would ask Joe what he thought about this, given that he's a volunteer fan. You know, this is the world we live in with college football. Unfortunately, these programs, it's just a different beast, right in the belly of the beast here. These tickets are very expensive as is. You got a lot of blue collar folks, white collar folks, hard working class folks that go to these football games, and it sucks that this is getting stacked on top. Although these tickets are already a ridiculous amount. That being said, people are going to pay for them, so it again they can do whatever they want. Now, there are two sides of this coin here. There's one, they're flat out saying, "Hey, this is what we're doing." It can be annoying. However, you at least know where your money's going. A lot of people, I think, can rest assured that their money's going to a good cause to try to help them win football games. So, I mean, it's at least it's transparent because there's going to be a lot of teams that will do this. They're not going to say it's an upcharge. They're just going to charge more for it. I mean, it's the same difference, but it's not transparent. It's really just kind of one of those unfortunate things that this is the world we live in with college football. You can continue to up the ante and money expenses it keeps going up. The more you pay these kids, the more these teams spend money on coaches and athletes. Um, this is the world we live in, unfortunately, with college football. Moving on to Wake Forest canceling their 2025 matchup that was supposed to be at Ole Miss. This just came out officially this week. Now, there was a misconception with it. A lot of people were thinking that Wake Forest just got dog walked 40-6 this week, so they decided to just cancel the second part of the home and home. That is not the case. Just to clear the air, if you were not sure about that, that is not how this happened. This happened a week before the game even happened, and it was solely financial on Wake's part. You have Lane, my guy that, my favorite coach out there. Lane wasn't too happy. He said that this is an unwritten rule you just don't do in college football. It does put them in a bind because the SEC does need to have one Power 4 opponent on their schedule a year. And keep in mind, these schedules are getting put out years in advance. I believe this game was scheduled in like 2018 or something like that. So to cancel it right off the bat, I get it. It's frustrating. But Lane Kiffin is the last guy that I want to hear anything about unwritten rules or you just don't do it. Because Lane's the same guy that ran out of Tennessee in the middle of the night, packed his bags, and went to Southern California to take what he perceived to be a better job. Wake is a small school. They're a small school in not the Big Ten or the SEC. This has become an arms race in college football. And these small programs, they can't really survive like they may have once been able to. Again, I get it puts Ole Miss in a bind, but you got to do what's right for your athletes and your university, and that's what they did here. They have scheduled a home and home with Oregon State, and if it makes sense financially, they got to do it. I just hearing Lane complain about it is very hypocritical to me, and I just had to laugh at it. It's Lane Kiffin, Lane doing Lane things. Joe loves Lane Kiffin. Don't know what he thinks about it, but that's my take. Lastly, the Marshall head coach, they're getting ready for their upcoming game with the Buckeyes, the Ohio State Buckeyes. And he was in a presser talking about how he'd love to have some Ohio State. Why in the hell? This is why I need Joe. This is why I need Joe to record, do this stuff. I can make designs. I can come up with cool names. I can come up with ideas. But I got balloons flying from the skies, thumbs coming up. I'm not pressing anything. I'm just talking. Nevertheless, back to it. Marshall's head coach was in a presser saying that he'd love to have some of those Ohio State guys. He did mention that he can strike them up an all-you-can-eat biscuits NIL deal over at a local restaurant. I am sick and tired of the tampering that's going on with these universities. The NCAA would be the organization to look into this and investigate it and suspend a guy like this. Meanwhile, you got Notre Dame and all these big programs jumping in tampering with these guys that haven't even jumped in the portal yet. Just joking, but not joking. I thought it was hilarious. Some of those big boys may be down for some biscuits, some of those guys up front. I mean, he may land a pretty solid 0 tech or 3 tech. You never know. That's all I got for news. Moving on to the important stuff of the football games. That's why we're here in the first place. Friday night. I am so pumped for this matchup. you have the number 24 ranked University of Illinois Fighting Illini playing in Lincoln, Nebraska against the number 22 Nebraska Cornhuskers. Now, if anybody could tell me the last time these two opponents faced on a rank on rank matchup, I I'll buy you some of those biscuits down at Marshall. Seeing this is very surreal. I think it's so awesome for the sport. It's so awesome for the Big Ten to see these games go like this. You know, Illinois has historically not been great. They've had a couple decent seasons, but they just came off of a big win against a KU program that a lot of people had slated as a dark horse. They have only given up 23 points all season. Now, I know they haven't played any big dogs yet, but that's solid. Now, they're going up in a very hostile environment in Lincoln to play a red hot freshman phenom in Dylan Raiola. Nebraska is a 7.5 point favorite. This week to me is like a litmus test week where you really are going to see what teams really are. This is all going to start coming into fruition, and I think the overreactions of the first few weeks can be start to get put to rest because these teams are really going to be tested now. Dylan Raiola is playing a solid defense in Illinois with a head coach and Brett Bielema, who he's a crafty guy. He knows how to win. It's not his first time winning upset football games, and I anticipate them scheming up a great plan for Raiola and the Huskers. Now, on the flip side, Nebraska is going to be on fire. That is a Friday night game, prime time, on a Friday night. I know I just said that, but that's critical. Friday night games are just weird. But Friday night home game against a red-hot Nebraska Huskers program that has sold out their stadium since they were bad. It's been like a decade since they haven't had a sellout. This environment's going to be awesome. If I were to pick a winning team here, I think I'm probably going with the home Nebraska Cornhuskers at -7.5. I don't think I'm taking the points. I think money line straight up. I can see a world where U of I flusters Raiola, but then again, I personally lean along the side that this kid has ice in his veins. This is going to be a good football game, and I highly suggest you tune in if you have nothing going on Friday. Moving on to Saturday, you got the the number 11 USC Trojans heading up to Ann Arbor for a matchup with the defending champion Michigan Wolverines, who are ranked 18th. Now, you're getting into Big Ten play, and you are getting into it quick. Ann Arbor is a difficult place to play. I don't care if Michigan's down. It doesn't matter. This is the biggest stadium in college football. This is a hostile environment. And you got a brand new starting quarterback at USC. Michigan did officially announce that Alex Orji is their starter. Think what you want of that. I do think the Michigan Wolverines are down this year. They lost a lot of key pieces. Donovan Edwards has been sleepwalking through the first 3 weeks. They played Arkansas State, who I believe was ranked in the bottom 25. They beat them by 10 points at home. It's not looking good. Point blank period, it's not looking good. On the flip side, you have USC, who's gained a lot of traction. They did lose some pieces on offense, but they have a quarterback that can sling it. He's not Caleb Williams, but he can play ball. They still have an offense. This is a Lincoln Riley football team, so they're going to be able to score points. Point blank period. Their downfall, and always has been their downfall, was their defense. This year, they're playing solid defense. all things considered up to this point. What I'm going to say is this. People are assuming that the Trojans are going to go in, take care of business, cover, go back to Southern Cal. I'm sitting here and telling you I'm not 100% sure that's going to happen. I lean along the side of people are overreacting to what the Trojans are. They can be excellent. I don't know yet. I think the verdict's still out. I do think that they are better than what they were last year as a whole because they can play defense. That being said, the simple fact that their defense now has a pulse does not make me sit here and think that they are a top 10 program and they're going to go into Ann Arbor in the big house and just steamroll this team like Texas did. It's not going to happen like that. I don't know in what world people think it is. Okay. I'm not sitting here telling you that Michigan's going to win this football game, but I think Michigan is very tough up front, and I think that at this point if Texas wasn't a wake up call, I don't know what is. Again, going back to that litmus test point. USC beat LSU. LSU's not good. They're going to struggle all year. We've talked about it the past couple weeks. They played at what was a neutral site, but it was in Vegas, so it was much more of a home game than going down to Death Valley. I think that would have been a difference maker personally. I'm just not sold just yet. I'm not sold just yet on USC. I think this is the first big test, and this is going to determine what I think of them. And Michigan as well. Moving forward to an old foe of the Trojans, the Utah Utes, who are now a member of the Big 12, playing their first Big 12 matchup against Oklahoma State. You got a 12th ranked Utah at 14th ranked Oklahoma State. Before I get into it, I just want to say it's really neat seeing these with the realignment. No matter how much I don't like it, this first week is going to be solid. Or this first year is going to be solid, but seeing these new matchups. Well, hello, Lucy. Either way, it's creating some awesome matchups, and Utah is favorite by 2.5 points. Cam Rising will be back. Let's just hope his health is, for the sake of him, his health is up to par and he can come in and play. Now, hypothetically, he doesn't. You have a young kid by the name of Isaac Wilson, brother of Zach Wilson in the NFL. This kid can sling it. 100%. This kid can sling it. He got a lot of quality reps last week. Kyle Whittingham, I will listen to whatever that man says because I think he's the best coach in college football, and he is high on Isaac Wilson. So, Cam goes down. I'd go on a limb and say I think Wilson is comparative to Bowman over at Oklahoma State. I'm not very high on that kid. Overall, I think Utah has the better team. I think Ollie Gordon has to be a difference maker if Oklahoma State wants to win this football game. But a Utah Ute at full health, I just think across the board in every area, for the most part, they are better. I think they're going to win. They were my pick to win the Big 12. Moving to the last game that I think is notable. You have number 6 Tennessee at number 15 Oklahoma. This one can be a little dicey, and the reason being doesn't really make sense. So, Tennessee's a 7.5 point favorite on the road. Tennessee has been rolling by every metric possible in college football. They just put 64 points on the board at half. I know Kent State's not a good football team, but if you can put 64 points on an able-bodied FBS program in one half of football, you're a damn good football team. if I were to have power rankings, if they're not one, they're number one, they're number two. They can play football. Up to this point, they've done everything they're supposed to do and then some. Oklahoma, on the other hand, can't say the same thing. Oklahoma has been lackluster and underwhelming up to this point. They played a tight game to Houston. I know everybody had a bad week too, but across the board, they haven't been playing very good. So logically, you'd sit here and say that Tennessee is going to steamroll the Sooners. I'm here to tell you this is a recipe for disaster. I think Joe agrees with me as well, given that he's a Tennessee fan. This is an absolute recipe for disaster. Couple things to point out. First off, that's college football math. It doesn't make sense. But a couple things notable to point out with this. Nico has been killing it. Quarterback at Tennessee. He looks great by, again, every metric. Nico Iamali, I don't know why I tried to do that, but the kid can play ball. This is his first road game, true road game as a starting quarterback. He's going into Sooner country. He's going into Norman to play a historically good program. People forget as well that Brent Venables, head coach of the Sooners, was the defensive coordinator at Clemson when they were winning the Natties. He put on an absolute masterclass performance with his scheme when they had Trevor Lawrence on as quarterback and they rolled the Tide. When they went in and beat Bama by a ridiculous amount, they suffocated that offense. They suffocated, I think it was Tua at the time. It was an outright dominant performance. You have a guy that knows his stuff when it comes to defensive football and frustrating some young quarterbacks. This is also Oklahoma's first this is their first SEC game. This is their first conference game as an SEC member. If you think for 1 second that they're going to go in and just lay down, you are 100% mistaken. I think this game is a recipe for disaster for the Vols. I'm sticking with Tennessee because I just think they're too good across the board, and Oklahoma has not given me anything to feel confident. It's just, again, it's college football math that makes this a recipe for disaster. That's the best way I can describe it. So I'm going with Tennessee. So I went over the 4 biggest matchups of the week. Again, doing this myself. This is the first time I've ever done it. Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a great week of football. We're actually lined up for 2 weeks coming up that are going to be stellar. And you are going to catch me sitting on the couch, doing nothing all day on Saturday, watching these games. We may post a little bit of content in between there. But again, I think that this is the litmus test week where you really start to see opponents or programs and see what they actually kind of are. They're starting to play some really good football teams, and you can throw those overreactions, underwhelming performances. None of it matters up to this point. Every week is different, and now teams are going to be challenged. That's really all I have for this one. Hopefully we're able to get things going this coming week with Joe. That being said, I'm going to sign out.